What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate. Quick shout out to Dubby Energy. They are putting a bigger discount if you use our discount code, which will be attached on this episode. It's Creator Week, which we are considered a creator. So what do you know? We don't do the video game thing here, but we're still a part of their platform. So if you want some Dubby for cheaper, I think it's 30% off, and that goes till the end of this week. So use it while you can. If you wanted to try it out, now's a great time to do so. Also, shout out to Fanplex, TSN Off Road, and of course, Dano's Seasonings, as I continue to pretty much put that on my stuff every night. You guys are Dano's dudes? You have Dano's in the house?
Oh, definitely got Dano's in the house.
Every flavor.
Oh, yeah. Keep coming out with more, too, man. How are we doing tonight before we start off too far?
Good, man. No complaints my way.
No, is the pollen falling like where Marv and I are at yet, or is it not quite there?
Starting to this week.
Marv, is your vehicle yellow?
Yes, it's not intentionally yellow, but yes, it's yellow.
Yeah, it's not App State yellow or anything on purpose, right?
No, it's disgusting. Another month and hopefully all this crap will be gone, because I can tell you I've been feeling it, man. My allergies have been killing me. Yeah,
I haven't been hit too hard, but my wife is either kind of getting a little sickness or the allergies are playing a bigger part in her life than usual. So we'll have to see which way that goes. We also want to shout out Chance Up. We went out and grabbed a shirt apiece because check this thing out. Coastal Carolina, Chanticleer. Got the chant on there with the C on the shirt. Chance Up on the bat. It's a pretty sweet shirt. Can't lie.
Sweet.
We hit him up on Twitter. He had some extras left. At least one of each in each of our sizes. So special shout out because this shirt is awesome. If you are a Coastal fan, definitely recommend. We had to get them for this show because Coastal is one of the brands that supports the Sunbelt Enterprise, the Sunbelt Conference as it is. So yeah, we'll have to proudly support this one going forward. Ben James with a little bit of breaking news, maybe. I don't know if that's he's saying his official. Hodgkin to South Florida. For those not familiar with the name, that is Arkansas State's head coach who just signed a pretty big extension at Arkansas State, but apparently on the move already. If they had waited till April 1st, the buyout would have been $1 million. As it stands, it's $900,000. So not a big difference there, but Arkansas State about to get paid. Unfortunately, they are going to have to look for a new head coach. And Ben and I were having a little side conversation earlier today. No clue who that'll be. None. I don't know. Who do you go after at this point, right? I mean,
I would assume
you guys.
Sunbelt basketball is probably the same as Sunbelt football. Like you go for a big name bench assistant and bring him in, someone that's good at recruiting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if, and I don't know this because I don't know enough about the depth of rosters of coaches within this league at the basketball level. If it keeps some of your players there, do you do the Sean Clark or what a couple other schools have done and keep a guy who's already there on the coaching staff and push him to the top? We'll see. He said he's hearing that it might be a Florida assistant. That's what Ben is saying. So that would be a pretty good bet after I just got lucky to see Florida in the regional over here on Friday, and they look dang good, guys. So that would not be a bad school to grab a head basketball coach from. But back to the baseball, because we'll resume basketball again Wednesday night from the sounds of it.
Have a live show this week?
We have a live show for basketball, wrapping up the season. If some of the women teams are still playing, we may touch on kind of what their chances are going forward. Men's teams are all wrapped up. So we will be wrapping the season for basketball, and we have a special guest lined up. So that will be pretty cool to move forward. But again, we're here to talk Sunbelt baseball. Guys, our highest ranked team, Southern Miss. Thoughts on them real quick?
They're pretty good.
I didn't realize they were that high. Wow.
Their newest ranking, number 13 in the country.
It's impressive.
So, very impressive.
It's kind of like the conversation, and we'll get into it. There were definitely some moves made this past weekend on the kind of separating, but it's a 3-horse race right now, in my opinion. The way things sit right now, I don't think we get a 4th team into a regional, but we got 3 pretty darn good baseball teams.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think Seth was saying the same earlier today. We've got kind of a separation, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but it's unfortunate because I thought we had 4 or 5 teams that could be battling it out. It looks like we've got 3, and yeah. Even
after last week, we ended the show with talking about who that 4th team could be, and after this weekend, I don't think there's a close 4th, to be honest with you.
I know, I'd agree. We'll definitely talk about that in the rankings here in just a minute. So yeah, for today's episode, because of where they sit nationally, because of the sweep they just completed this past weekend, Southern Miss to the top. For those that are wondering what that abbreviation means for the show, Southern Miss to the top. But I put 4 now because I don't think there's some of the other teams in this conference that are done trying to have a word about how that sits.
Look at that. I am the best at being bad.
Hey, you've got the best record at 7-11. 7-11 there, Marv, just for you. I mean, I don't think any of us thought. I mean, we could talk about this. Let's go right to the middle one first, and we'll end with that ranked matchup. I don't think I would have said either App State or Georgia Southern would have swept this weekend. I would not have predicted that at all.
None of us did.
I mean, do you guys think that was a possibility? I mean, I didn't even think it was possible.
I took App, kind of being a homer a little bit, but, App just got done sweeping Texas State, which I think is a pretty decent baseball team, and Georgia Southern had just got swept. So that was kind of my logic going behind it. But, yeah, I didn't envision either team sweeping. App played one competitive game. The other 2 games weren't that competitive.
Historically, I think we were all a little bit surprised with App being 3-0 after last weekend, and I knew they would drop. I didn't think they'd go in there and get 2. They'd win 2. I thought they'd win at least 1, but just to be honest, it's pretty embarrassing. We were all riding a little bit high last week. I think we were all brought down to earth after this weekend. Some teams that we thought could slip in there, and it's like we were talking today. I think it's just a little disappointing from where we were at the beginning of the season to now. Looking, a 6 game should be a good little sample size of what we got going on here. But like we talked about, I think it's a 3-horse race, and everybody else is just going to fall in behind.
I just thought the bats were going enough for App, right? Like, yeah, we had questions about some of the pitching being consistent and being good across the board, but I thought the bats were going to be enough to, as Marv and I predicted, 2 wins, but obviously Seth even with 1 win.
Yeah.
So
some of these App games, they're having to score 15 or 16 runs just to hold on.
Hey,
that's just not sustainable.
They scored 13 in the middle one, and it wasn't enough.
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about that one too. That was incredible. I thought Marshall would come in and surprise the Dukes and get a sweep. They were a little bit hotter coming in. JMU had just won their first series of the year, but I wasn't blown away by anything JMU had done. So I thought Marshall was looking stronger, but I was wrong there. Marv's the only one that got that one right. 2-1 in favor of the Herd there. Marv, you gonna gloat on that one as your lone victory of the week?
Well, I mean, there's only 2 victories out of 9, so someone's got to be, a little close. I don't know. I thought, JMU played some really tough competition in their non-conference. I just don't think Marshall's that good of a baseball team. It is what it is. So, yeah, blind squirrel gets a nut every now and again.
Yeah. Seth, did you think Marshall would stand a better chance to win because they were playing at home, or was that not really a big aspect to?
Yeah, I think after last week's series with Arkansas State, I thought they'd at least bounce back this weekend. But I think it's our job as a sunbelt podcast to talk about everybody. But this is just not exciting at the moment to me. But we're trying. I mean, we got a number 13 ranked team in the nation, and then we got mediocre below. But I mean, sometimes it's brutal. But let's just call a spade, and everybody's beating up on everybody, and that's not because it's that competitive. It's just we're not very good.
Yeah, maybe at the bottom, definitely not. Now let's talk about the top, though, the good that was there. Number 24 versus number 25. Obviously, those rankings have now changed. But going into the weekend, that's what we had with Troy, or Coastal, I should say, traveling down to Troy, where Troy came out victorious. And fellas, I'll gloat on that one, 2-1. I thought that was a pretty hard one to predict because I think a lot of people would have sided with the 2 of you who went 2-1 for Coastal over Troy, and I went the opposite direction there. I didn't think anybody would sweep that one. I didn't think that was going to happen. And I could have seen where people thought Coastal was the better team, coming into the weekend, but Troy prevails. So I'm doing a little bit to catch up. I got lucky that Seth didn't secure any victories this week. That helped me a little bit. Marv's still a little outpacing me there, but I've got some kind of shot now. I'm at least swinging back again. But
we talk about how hard it is for teams to get a sweep in this league. It's almost mission impossible for one of us to get a sweep on all 3 picks.
Did it happen last year? Do you guys remember?
If it happened with you, it might have been me and Marv.
It definitely didn't happen with me.
I feel like if it would have happened, we'd all remember it. And the fact that we're all sitting here kind of going, I don't think it did. I think maybe 2 out of 3, but for those that like to judge us on our records, this is hard.
Yeah, and I think it's we've said it before, say again, it's what sets us apart, right? We could all have great records if it was just wins losses, because for the most part we've done pretty well there. It's definitely going to be much better than what you're seeing on the records here. Even that is obviously wrong. Like I would have got the Marshall one wrong no matter what. But there's a lot of other ones that could have been switched for the record being a little bit better. So anyway, that's a review of our weekly picks, and now we'll jump into the best in class, kind of a play on words there, as we're going the single, double, triple A, and then the teams at the top that we consider to be in the show. You guys told me to take care of this and we'll debate it on the show. So what do you see in here that you immediately disagree with or have a problem or issue with?
JMU.
Okay. Thought about that one. And Georgia Southern, you said?
Yeah. I mean, again, if we're going by recent bias, I guess they did come off a sweep, but they also got swept last weekend. So I don't think did Texas State sweep this weekend?
They did.
They got swept last week. To be straightforward with you, I don't know, Dom and Marv, if any team deserves to be in AAA.
I would say that it is the 3 teams in the show and then a category that says everybody else.
I would say, I'm not disagreeing with Seth one bit, because I thought about the same thing. Do we have a team in AAA right now? And I was hard pressed to kind of do a little bit of separation. As Seth said, Georgia Southern sneaks into the AAA by pure fact that they swept, right? Texas State, same thing. You've won 3 straight games, so you have to separate the field a little bit in that regard. JMU is in AAA solely because they just won their series, okay? It wasn't all that impressive in the big picture, but they did win their first 2 series in conference play after not a great start. So kind of are they coming up, right? Like, took a shot on them. That one is the questionable one, but I'm not that different from you guys when you say maybe there's just a massive gap between the top 3 and everybody else. But I do think you could have some teams down there in the single A, and I think all teams right there, I don't know.
Yeah,
anything you think don't deserve to be down there?
I don't know if we're throwing App in single. I mean, they did have a sweep last week. So
and a sweep against the team we currently have in AAA. So you're right.
Let me ask you this. Again, didn't follow as much. I know Georgia State lost on Friday. How did they do on the weekend?
They lost 2 out of 3 to Old Dominion.
Mm-hmm. They won the last one. And
bear in mind, it's 7-14.
Remember, that was the team last week we were talking about that we were interested to see when we got to Monday night what we would be saying. But so that means what? They're 4-2 in conference.
Who, Old Dominion or Georgia State? They're 4-2 in conference. Yeah.
I mean,
and they're 16-1 overall. I mean, they're not. They lost their midweek game and then they lose 2 out of 3. Had they won 2 out of 3 and won their midweek, then no doubt they're probably AAA, and we're debating, hey, are they in the show? Because I was the first one to say last week, like, hey, that's the 4th team, right? And then last week they just didn't prove it. JMU's only won 9 baseball games. They have a losing record. They're 9-15 on the season. I don't know. Like I said, for right now, I think it's the 3 teams in the show and everybody else. Not saying that Georgia State, JMU, Georgia Southern, Texas State couldn't go on a run, and even Louisiana go on a run and end up in AAA. But right now, it's the 3 front runners and just everybody else.
Remember, I know I'm the first one bashing all these teams, but there's still a lot of baseball left.
There is
a tremendous amount of baseball left, but just from what we've seen with midweeks, non-conference, this is kind of nobody has jumped off the page except maybe Georgia State.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of talked about them coming back to earth a little bit here. I mean, if you're as good as you thought we were, I don't know why we're struggling with defeating ODU. Again, they got that last victory on Sunday, and
they lost to West Georgia on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep, we can get into that. I mean,
Agents have let us down quite a bit too.
Yeah, I think everybody is let down by them, themselves included, right? I mean, I don't think anybody thought that they'd be in this position at this point of the year. I think there were some people who were realistic about them having a little bit of an uphill climb, but even this record, this struggle start-wise is probably a little surprising. We'll see, though. We'll see. Like you said, a lot of baseball left still to play, and with that, we'll jump over directly into the standings as they look right now, so you could take what our classifications are and just kind of look about maybe why we have some of them the way we do. As we mentioned, Southern Miss at the top of the conference right now at 5-1, 3 teams tied at 4-2 with Troy, Coastal, and Georgia State. I missed one. JMU also sitting there at 4-2. So a 4-team tie for second place, as it is a bunch of teams tied at 3-3, including Georgia Southern, App State, Texas State, Louisiana, ODU, and then we got 2 teams tied at 2-4 with Marshall and Arkansas State, and 2 teams at the bottom right now in South Alabama and ULM, just 1-5 in conference play to start the year. But there's some oddballs here, right? Like JMU up towards the top of the conference, but just as Marv just said, 9-15 overall. So
yeah, but they stepped up in their non-conference. I mean, their first series was against Florida State, who's a top 10 baseball team. So, could it have been that you played a bunch of really good teams, your overall record doesn't look good, but now you're coming into the Sun Belt, which is top heavy, and you're picking off some of these middle of the pack and lower of the pack teams? I don't know. Like, we said it, the season's not even halfway over, like 35% of the way through the season. So this is obviously, I think the middle part changes and shifts every single week, but not to be redundant, you got your top 3 by far.
Yeah.
Good bounce back by Texas State as well. I mean, coming off starting 0-3, and I'd much rather start 0-3 and then tie it up at 3-3 rather than start 3-0 and then get swept.
Yeah.
It's only uphill from here.
Yeah, an interesting way for App and Texas State to literally flip from what they both did last weekend. So, and then right there in the standings with each other, with the overall record at 11-12 apiece as well. So kind of just
it kind of wild that the top teams that we're talking about, 2 of the 3 have a 4-2 record, and we're not even batting an eye. We're not worried about them at all.
I know, right?
Because they played each other.
Yeah.
I think that was funny. Right now, a lot of Southern Miss fans are pretty pumped that they're number 1 in the conference as it stands, and as you should be. But there's people nipping at your heels, and baseball is I don't know. Real quick, such a different sport than anything else, right? I mean, you're not even got a consistent roster going into every week. Football, you kind of know who your guys are going to be going into every week. Obviously, injuries change that. Basketball, same thing. But baseball, you've got to rely on a couple of different starting pitchers who are supposed to be a massive part of your team, all having the same type of success. I mean, I don't know if there's a sport in the world that's like baseball in that respect, right? Like,
baseball's a lot like golf. Anybody can go out there except me and shoot and shoot par. But being good at golf is consistent, and it's a lot like baseball. Just staying consistent. You're going to slip up here or there. Ball's going to bounce a different way, but it's having yourself in every game.
Yeah.
Look at Southern Miss, Troy, Georgia, Coastal. They may have lost, but go back and look at the scores. Maybe except Wake Forest, I think, for Coastal, but they were in every game.
Yeah.
They're not getting
that Wake game. Yeah, that Wake game's actually very close for a long period of time. So that in the end, it got a little out of hand, but yeah. Oh, check it out. Guess who's here?
Party tonight, buddy.
We went early. He's probably used to the 8:45, but Seth's bedtime is early, so it's all good. I don't dislike the earlier start either. I just it usually just gives us a little more time to get everything prepped and ready. But you guys talked about some scores. I think it was Seth that mentioned it last. So we'll take a quick look at last week. Tuesday's slate was huge. I think almost every team in the conference went on Tuesday, at least from the looks of this graphic here. We had number 25 Troy absolutely hammer UAB 14-2. UAB is a pretty good baseball program, so to run rule them on a Tuesday night, especially when you've got that regional rivalry, is a pretty big deal. What other ones kind of stick out to you guys here, maybe besides that one specifically?
Southern Miss.
Yeah, Southern Miss. give kudos to Texas State, right? So they come off.
That's the only other win we had.
Well, no. Well, look at this. I mean, so Texas State gets swept by App, right? Then you go and play Baylor, and you get absolutely throttled. And then you come back and sweep your weekend series.
Very true. Very true. Georgia Southern did beat Kennesaw State. And for those that aren't aware, Kennesaw State actually pretty good, formidable baseball program. I'm not exactly sure how they look this year overall, but historically, one of the better programs in their conference. So not an easy victory there to get that 5-4 victory. But, I mean, look at that South Alabama score against Alabama, number 12 Alabama. Only one run difference there. So you think going into this weekend, right, that plays into their favor, right? A close game, flip it, and you beat a number 12 team in the country. Just didn't quite work out.
South Alabama 2 weeks ago, midweek was it Ole Miss or Mississippi State, and then go get beat in this weekend series. The midweek games to me are a little tricky. Obviously you got your Friday, Saturday, Sunday starter, right? A lot of times these are bullpen games where you're getting a lot of guys' looks. But as we talked, with all the coaches earlier, these are really big RPI resume games in these midweeks. So you got to win them if you can. But I don't expect the same consistency out of the midweeks as you do on the weekends because, once again, you're throwing a lot of guys typically on a Tuesday night.
I think another one that caught me off guard was Georgia State scoring 11 runs wasn't the part that caught me off guard. Allowing West Georgia to beat you 12-11. That one was shocking to me. I don't think West Georgia's D1 in anything other than baseball, and maybe I don't even know if they are in baseball, to be honest with you. I don't know enough about West Georgia. I don't know. Seth, are you looking that up if they're D1 in baseball?
I was actually wrong. Good for Arkansas State. Is that Missouri State they got to win against?
Yeah,
that's correct. 3-2 over
a tournament
Missouri State.
Team, wasn't it? Pretty sure that's a tournament team.
If it wasn't, they're still historically good baseball program. So, yeah, it's not nothing to beat that team 3-2. So, yeah, I just think that Georgia State one surprised me. I mean, you also, kind of like Marv was alluding to earlier, too, you score 11 runs, you kind of expect to win, right?
Mm-hmm. It should be enough.
Unless you're App, you got to score twice that just to stay competitive.
Yeah. Well, and then Coastal Carolina, the Camels are not what they have been as of recent history, but Campbell's still a formidable team that's not easy to beat. So to get that victory there, 5-4,
you got to think Coastal, knowing what they had that weekend, was probably very cautious with who they threw in that game.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that covers Tuesday, so we'll jump over to Wednesday's slate. Much, much, much smaller. We had ODU going down to William and Mary, West Virginia getting by JMU, and Southeast Louisiana taking it to the Cajuns. So we went 0 for 3. We didn't have a great Tuesday. We did not rebound with a good Wednesday whatsoever. I don't know. To me, the bottom one is the most shocking. The Cajuns losing to not only in-state opponent, an opponent that they never like to drop anything to in Southeast Louisiana, but they didn't even just lose. They got beat soundly 7-1 at home in that one as well. So not great, right? I mean, I don't know. Anything else to say about these other two games?
No, not really. No.
Yeah. Ben is confirming West Georgia is Division I. So that's probably a more recent move. Again, I don't think they are Division I for football. If they are, maybe they're 1AA now at this point, FCS. Either way, when you have to look it up, it's not a great thing you lost to them, right?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So that took us to the weekend action. We can bring back Friday and Saturday on the jump. Let's just go to Sunday. We'll see how it all played out as an overall picture. Again, ODU gets the best of Georgia State 2-1. Georgia State does get that victory 3-1 in that final game. On Sunday, Troy got the 9-5 victory over Coastal to take the ranked matchup 2-1. As we talked about, JMU wins the last game 2-1 and the series 2-1. Georgia Southern completes the sweep of App State 5-1, and Southern Miss had no questions in that last one, right, fellas?
Nope, that's it's hard to get a sweep, but they left no doubt.
Yeah, and let's jump back here. So Friday between those two teams, 8-5, not easy, had to work for it, right? Because this game also, home team's on the left, home team is on the right, road team is on the left. So Southern Miss on the road down there at ULM, 8-5. 7-6, even harder fought victory on Saturday. They finally woke all the way up and took care of business 14-2 against the Warhawks. Again, Texas State completes the sweep. Cajuns squeak it out versus South Alabama. And the 9-3 maybe looks worse than it really was. I don't know. I forget exactly if that game was pretty close early on or not.
I'll tell you what. After Friday night, I was feeling really good about my 2-1 Coastal over Troy pick.
Yeah, go back to that one. 11-3.
Yeah.
Easy to see why there. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that Georgia Southern game in that first one against App State? 9-0.
It's really hard to win games if you don't score runs.
Yeah.
I think Caleb struggled a little bit to begin with there. And
is Juan still out? I don't think he played this weekend.
Don't think he did either, if I can recall correctly.
I mean, that hurts having him out of your lineup. But still, 9-0. Nothing to see here. Yeah, there were some competitive games, but I was shocked about ODU, beating up on Georgia State like that. And, that's about it.
Yeah, the extra point was missed in that second App State versus Georgia Southern game, 13-14. That was crazy, though, right? I mean, we got to talk about that one. So they're down. What was the score then? 9-11?
Yeah, App had jumped on them to begin with, and Georgia Southern just chipped away. And then big grand slam definitely turned the game.
Yeah, grand slam for App State in the top of the ninth, right? Is that when it happened? Top of the ninth.
Yeah.
To take the one-run lead, 13.
They were down to their last strike too, or their last out at least.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know a lot of people were like, "Wow, they came back. They're going to win this thing." Not so. Georgia Southern puts 2 on them in the bottom of the ninth, walk off, and get that victory, which was a big one because App State getting just one in that series would have been a little bit. You feel a little different, right? I mean, if you go on the road,
you still have above 500 conference record. You get one of those.
Not only that, you have a big comeback win like that on a Saturday. You feel like it probably propels you momentum wise for Sunday.
Yep. Absolutely. But we got to look at Texas State here too. I mean, 6-2 in that first one against Arkansas State, 5-4 in the second one, and then winning 6-3. So Texas State got the sweep. Arkansas State was competitive in those games. So we do have to mention that even though they're not looking great overall, they're not tanking the season, right? I mean, they're still out there fighting. I'd say the same for South Alabama, right? I mean,
same thing with
7-1 in that first one. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
The JMU Marshall series was super competitive all the way through.
Yes. Yep. 6-5, 5-4, 2-1. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you lost the series, but you played ball, right? You want it to go the other way, but it's not out there getting embarrassed.
No, absolutely not. Not many embarrassing games, and App State was the only one that, really big one to start on Friday, and then ULM dropped that 14-2 finale on Sunday. But, a little rough. We'll have to see what goes on. So let's look at this week's slate. We've got some interesting games on Tuesday night. JMU plays Richmond, probably kind of a big deal up there in the local area since that's 2 close teams to each other. Back in the FCS football days, those were the 2 big rivals there. App gets another shot at High Point. This is the team that beat them pretty soundly earlier in the season, right?
High Point.
I try to make that one tomorrow night, I think.
Yeah.
Nice.
Marv, you got your other somebody with another computer. Check High Point's RPI is very, very high. Last I looked. See if that's still. I'm talking about like top 10.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
They are not top 10 right now, but they are. You sure about that? They're at 58.
Oh. Hey, what's ETSU while you got that out?
ETSU is 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
They must have had a bad weekend because I would have thought the Tennessee win would have propelled them pretty high.
Yeah, I would have thought the same thing. And maybe that's a big draw. Let's see.
They were already ranked pretty high, too.
Coastal's got a 7 RPI. Troy's got a 9.
7 and 9?
7 and 9.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and Southern Miss is 32.
I guess wins against Ole Miss would probably do that for you.
It helps. I mean, gosh, Coastal could go to the number 1 RPI in the country probably if they beat Clemson this week.
Yeah, that's a good point. That'll be an interesting one.
Coastal is the number 3 RPI team in the country right now.
Who?
Yeah.
Clemson.
Clemson took 2 or 3 from Wait this weekend.
He did.
Yep. No joke. That one will be a tough one, but a really, really exciting one for Coastal fans who obviously want that in-state bragging rights on that one. And then we've got the great matchup between Marshall and West Virginia. We know those two schools and those two fan bases absolutely hate each other. West Virginia got the better part of Marshall in both games last year, and I think both were pretty significant victories for the Mountaineers. We'll have to see if the Herd can get some retribution in this first matchup, because I believe they'll play again twice this season as well. Southern Miss, I mean, I don't think Nichols is near the top, so I'm going to say that they should probably get that victory there.
Hey, don't be surprised that South Alabama was very competitive against Auburn. They've been really good in all their midweeks. Yeah.
And, the Cajuns have worked some magic against LSU in the past. It's not easy to win at the box. Number 8 LSU. They are where's their
RPI? Let's see.
RPI is down at 38 for LSU. Again, that's just one small metric that you got to talk about there. But anybody think Wofford is going to do anything against number 22 Troy as this week looks?
It's a midweek game. You never know. Hey, Richmond's got a 53 RPI and
where's
58.
Where's Texas Rio Grande at?
They're top. God, they're
16.
Yeah.
So they slipped just a little bit.
Yeah,
one spot below North Carolina. One spot.
And Auburn is 11 RPI.
Yeah,
playing in the SEC does that for you.
Yeah, when you go up against Murderers Row every single weekend, that helps.
Yeah,
but they're 19-5. The fact that they're not ranked, being 19-5 with that high of an RPI in that conference, blows my mind.
Yeah.
Definitely interesting there. So ODU takes on East Tennessee State. So that one will be a nice little metric, right? ODU gets the victory over Georgia State this past weekend. What can they do on the road versus ETSU, which we just talked about how good of a team that's looking like? I don't know. I guess it should have been more obvious to me that the middle section of the E is the state outline of Tennessee.
That's pretty cool.
I did not notice that.
How did I not notice that?
I did not.
Oh, yeah. I didn't immediately either. I just was like, oh, they just, tried to make the E look fancy. And then I was like, oh, that is the state outline of Tennessee.
So. James would appreciate this. Have you guys, you can debate this on your live basketball show tomorrow. Have you guys seen the ASU's going to the North Carolina, the outline for the arena, for the basketball court?
I have not.
They're doing like the outline and then like the little Boone star and then app in the middle or whatever.
Gotcha.
That's so dumb. I hate that.
Well, I guess
North Carolina does it too, though, right?
Well,
I think ECU started it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. But also, in any school, and there's a couple of them in this conference, really, that people don't know kind of where it's at. I don't go too hard on the fact of where you're going to put a little star, so you kind of roughly know where these schools are located. But like Georgia State doesn't need to do that, right? So where Atlanta's at. But yeah, I can see the thought process behind it as far as like a market.
That was the coolest thing I learned today. That's awesome. Did not notice that.
I know. I appreciate the logo much more, and it's just a simple thing. It's nothing crazy. It's just nicely done. Looks sharp. Not any other real huge matchups. I don't know if Mercer's typically a pretty good baseball school, so Georgia State may have a test on their hands. I don't think
Central Arkansas is not bad either.
Yeah, that's true. And they've got Arkansas State there, which is, those guys play each other in like every sport, I think, every year. It just makes sense because it's not a far travel. And then you've got Incarnate Word going up against Texas State, which is kind of interesting. Head football coach DJ Kenny came from Incarnate Word. Don't know how many players that came with him are still on the roster or have left or graduated since then. But obviously in the baseball aspect, a little different. Still a regional game there for Texas State to take part in. And then that one weird looking bird logo there.
What's that thing?
Central Arkansas.
No, that's North Florida against Georgia Southern there. So that's another sneaky D1 team that you would not know of because their logo is just not well known, I guess. I would even assume, I don't know this for a fact, maybe the Thunderbirds or something, because you see the lightning strike kind of being pulled from the bird's face. I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, I know. I got the logo. I did not look at the mascot nickname of the school enough to know that. And then you got ULM going up against
off. He's not giving us much info tonight.
Yeah,
they're it's Ozzie the Osprey. They are the North Florida Osprey.
Okay, would not have gotten that right. I had no idea that was an Osprey. That kind of looks like, I mean, literally, you could put that right next to the Georgia Southern Eagle as it is on screen right now and be like, oh, yeah, they're both Eagles. I mean,
let's talk about those Clayton Clover uniforms, though. How sweet are those?
Is that a coach's top only, Marv, or is it kids playing in that too?
No. This is coach. Like they call them cage jackets. Logan had a game tonight, so I just got home from that. Shout out Logan, my youngest son. This is his first year of real baseball. Kid goes 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and 2 RBIs tonight and made a heck of a play at first base.
Nice.
Man, absolute smoking the baseball.
Yeah.
Thank God their mom was athletic.
I know.
Oh, man. And Marv's working those NIL deals already. So if you're scouting or recruiting,
I told the boys on my older team, I was like, I made some connections with some coaches. So, if you're you keep playing well and you act nice, I might send some video to some people here in, 4 or 5 years.
There you go. Tyler Austin jumping in saying, how about them Trojans? Yes, we covered that one and looking very, very good so far this season. And getting back to that, I guess that kind of wraps up the Wednesday. I think we kind of went through almost all of them. I don't think Troy's going to struggle with the Florida A&M Rattlers too much. But here's the weekend series. This is vitally more important than the midweeks, as we know. Obviously, you want to win those too. But we've got the all-state matchup there with the Georgia Southern Eagles taking on the Georgia State Panthers. A little intrigue in that one with how both teams have done so far this year, right?
That's a separate yourself kind of weekend for me. I mean, Georgia Southern, can you ride the wave? And Georgia State, are you who we thought you were, or are you falling back down to reality?
Yep, I think that's exactly the question for that one. ODU versus App State. Little intrigue here for me. I think this one, does ODU continue their upswing, even though they lost that last one to Georgia State? They got the series victory, and can App State rebound at home there? I think is that one you're going to make any games on, Seth? Maybe.
I'd like to try to make a few this week. It's always fun when the weather gets a little warmer to go sit outside and watch a little baseball.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're talking about that one, but just eyeballing, I'm extremely intrigued with Coastal at Texas State.
Yes.
Yeah. Can they rebound?
Yeah. Who is the real Texas State? Or do we get, I wouldn't be surprised seeing 2-1 out of that. Let's pick that one this week.
Yeah. That's probably a good one to pick.
Texas State is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think JMU, Louisiana is interesting. Like JMU, all right, have you figured things out? Are you going to continue? And Cajuns, you're at home. Can you kind of right the ship a little bit?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you've got the battle near the bottom. There's not the bottom two teams technically, as South Alabama technically with ULM, but ULM and Arkansas State face off. So that's important there because you got to see if either of those teams can start any kind of upswing and jump up in the standings a little bit. South Alabama's got an uphill climb against Southern Miss, but like you guys said earlier, I mean, you can't go in there thinking Southern Miss is just going to sweep that one. We've seen what South Alabama is capable of earlier this season.
If you send that to us on Thursday, I would definitely pick Southern Miss for the sweep.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would pick Southern Miss and Troy for the sweep this week.
Very intrigued with Georgia Southern, Georgia State as well. Hey, let's
we got to pick that one.
Let's do 4 this week. Let's do Georgia Southern. Let's do, because we're trying to figure out who's who. You got swept and then you sweep. Vice versa.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you pick the Georgia series and then everything in the middle.
Southern Miss at Coastal.
No, I'd say ODU at JMU, Louisiana, and Coastal Texas State.
Okay. Yeah. Tyler Austin's bringing up a good point. What rankings are y'all using? Just curious. There's like 50-11 rankings for baseball. That's true. So I decided early on. Sorry, what was that, Marv?
The RPI is Warren Nelson. That's the one that I use.
Yeah, for the RPI, I'm using the same one. For rankings themselves, when you see that number 13 besides USM there, it's D1 baseball rankings. That's what the NCAA puts on their official website. So that's why we've chosen to go with that ranking system, because if the NCAA is going to put it on their website and possibly or definitely use that when they go into the postseason, talking about which teams should and shouldn't go to regionals, I just feel like it's kind of the most consistent thing to do, because you're right. There are a lot of services out there that rank for baseball, and it is hard to keep straight who's where and which one. Because I bet you there's somewhere where Coastal's ranked in one, but we'll see. As you can see, not ranked any further. But that is the weekend series. So it's time for the blind resume. And I told these guys I wasn't going to give them any information. So they are watching and listening along with you guys to the blind resume here. We have Team A, Team B, Team C. Their record at the top, strength of schedule, RPI, and their Q1 and 2 record. That's Q1 and Q2 wins and losses.
Only?
No.
Okay.
There is, I'm not even going to tell you how many there is or isn't. I just want to see this because it was something I looked at earlier today, and it was really interesting and intriguing to me where some of these teams ended up in rankings that I don't know. I like the blind resume look. I don't want to give you guys too much information. You two start debating or talking about it between the two of you, and then
we'll say these are sunbelt teams.
No.
Well, one is.
Well, then I'm going to go Team C is a sunbelt team. Didn't we just say that Coastal was number 7 RPI?
Yeah, we probably should have started with this, huh? All right.
So did we get Team C correct?
You did get Team C correct.
This is already going better than our pick'em. This is great.
Now, you don't have to figure out who Team A and B is. I never thought that you guys would. But tell me your thought process of where you would rank these teams against each other. You know, ABC, CBA, A, C, B. Where, with what you are armed with here, which is most of the information you would probably want to look at, about the only thing you're missing here is recency bias. Right? You know, if they're on a 4-game losing streak or 6-game winning streak, obviously you don't know that. But based off their record, strength of schedule, RPI, and their win-loss record against some of the better teams in the country, where are you ranking these 3 teams?
So I'm a little confused here. Team A.
So confused.
Team A, I would like to say that is an SEC or an ACC school because they've had 10 games against Q1 and Q2 teams, but their strength of schedule is 73.
Can you tell us what conference Team A's in?
ACC.
Wake Forest.
No.
Clemson.
Carolina.
No.
It's not Carolina, Clemson, or Wake.
Nope.
They're 20-4. Not Virginia.
Florida State.
Nope.
Damn. All right, I give up.
No. No. They're 20-4.
This is why I did this. I knew this would be awesome. All right, Tyler's giving us a ranking. Since he's the first one, I'm going to say his. He has Team A first, Team C second, B last.
I don't disagree.
It's not state, is it?
It is not state.
Is it UVA?
Nope. I was surprised you haven't got it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've process of elimination. We should be there already.
TJ O'Sullivan saying SMU. Good guess. It is not SMU.
Louisville?
Nope. You're literally going to name every ACC team before you get this one.
No. Stanford?
That is Team B.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. 20-4, and it's not Wake.
It's not Carolina, NC State, Virginia, Florida State, Clemson.
Miami?
Nope.
Syracuse?
Nope.
Pitt?
Nope. Syracuse doesn't have a team.
Yeah, you ever been to Syracuse? You can't play baseball right now.
You know what they could do? They could play in the dome, right? But I don't. All right. TJ got
Georgia Tech. Yeah.
Georgia Tech.
And you know who one of those losses? One loss? Right? No, 2 losses. Yeah.
2 losses to Marshall. 2 losses to Marshall. Tyler says, I think A has to be first because their SOS, their strength of schedule sucks, but they won the games that they are supposed to. So let's reveal this to everyone who's watching and listening. So here's why I did this. Coastal Carolina has a tough weekend matchup on the road against Troy. Okay. They did win 1 game. They did not get swept. However, because they were right at the tail end of the rankings, they're now out. Georgia Tech is now 25th. Stanford now 20th. I had a hard time swallowing that. One reason I'm wearing the shirt tonight, the disrespect when it comes to a mid-major, right, who's played the 7th hardest schedule in the country, who has a RPI of 7. Yes, they're only 500 in the Q1 and 2 record combined, but they are 17-7 overall. Again, you just got them playing a ranked team on the road, still perform admirably, I would say. I mean, I don't think anybody thought much of losing that series. It wasn't a shock because Troy is that good of a team, right? They were thought to be the best team in this conference coming into the season. So
and
I have a hard time saying, what was that?
The middle game was 8-9. So, I mean, it was a super competitive. Yeah, that's this is where your conference comes into play.
Yep. And I agree with Tyler right there. 20th, how?
Yeah.
Stanford is 15-6. Not bad. Strength of schedule at 20. Not bad. RPI of 24. 1 game above 500 in Q1 and 2 teams combined. I don't even know how you put that team above Coastal, let alone above Georgia Tech.
I don't necessarily have an issue with where Georgia Tech and Stanford's at. My issue is where Coastal.
Now, I've got a bigger issue with Stanford being the highest ranked team there.
Same. That's my biggest issue. Yep. I was going to bring up a couple other points.
Very good. That. I like that. That's a very good point. That's excellent.
In my eyes, it should be Georgia Tech ranked 20th, Coastal ranked 25th, and Stanford on the outside looking in.
Yeah. Are we too invested in RPI if we're basing rankings off?
I think the way we saw at-large bids last year, you can't be too invested in RPI.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, you have to be.
Let me ask you this. Are rankings irrelevant at this point of the year based on this right here? If you have these 3 teams at the end of the year and you're choosing, you got 1 spot left for a regional, you throw the rankings out the window, in my opinion. And how could you not take Coastal just based on this?
I couldn't. I don't think.
You couldn't take Coastal?
No, I couldn't leave them out.
Right.
I don't think rankings at this point are irrelevant, but for me, it's
your chancellor on the board? Let me ask you
that.
Yeah. That could do you some favors there, right?
That's wild, Dom. That's excellent stat. That's good work. That blows my mind.
Yeah, and that's not all you could have argued, right? I mean, Georgia Tech has 2 Q4 losses, and we know who those are to because that's Marshall right there who's got them. And that series was even, right? We had a 4-game series there, and it was 2-2 at the end of it. Meanwhile, Coastal has 1 Q4 loss, but they have 8 Q3 wins. I mean, they're beating all the teams they're supposed to. So there's some aspects of this I didn't even include that could even strengthen a little bit more of an argument. I'm sure there's a couple on the other side of things as well. But I mean, I just looked at the record for Georgia Tech throughout. If you just go through their schedule, of course, your strength of schedule, they're looking at 73. It's obvious to me. I was like, I just don't understand how you're rewarding beating the teams you're supposed to beat with a ranking. I'm not saying Georgia Tech's a bad team. I'm just saying I'm putting Coastal in the rankings top 25 wise over a Georgia Tech team right now. So
I still don't see how their strength of schedule was 73 when they've already played 10 games inside of Q1, Q2.
Yeah. Well, here's the bad part about why their strength of schedule is so low.
2 losses in Marshall.
Half a sunbelt schedule to start with, and none of them were the top teams, so they got dinged there because they weren't playing the top part of the sunbelt, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's just hard to say I understand, right? Like I just don't, because we got to think about this, right? Let's say Coastal struggles this weekend. I don't know, 1-2 on the weekend or something. Now it's really, really difficult for them to climb back into the rankings, even if they would sweep the weekend after that, right? So it's like you see what you're doing by not getting this right at the start because you're making it harder for the mid-major schools, the smaller schools to jump back up because we're not playing the top upper echelon of the ACC and the SEC every weekend. Coastal is going to have to hammer teams they're supposed to hammer and sweep teams to get back into where they should be. It's just, I don't know. Tyler's got more to say here. Be careful saying rankings don't matter right now. we see what happened in football. If you start them high and they don't really stumble, you could be left with a really bad product sneaking into regionals. Just my opinion. I think, I, without even reading that beforehand, it's kind of what I just said. Yeah, make it harder on the teams that maybe are just as good but don't get the opportunity to show it as much. Go ahead, Seth.
Right. I fully agree with his statement. But, again, this is our second year. And I was fully as shocked of JMU getting in last year. And I think the numbers, especially that third tier right there, RPI, I think that is what – I agree with you. Losing in a conference is going to kill you. Yeah. So Coastal, Troy, Southern Miss, there's no letting up. You know, we talked last week about –
stumble to in conference or each other. That's it.
Let's face it, you go 1-2 against the Old Dominion or a Georgia Southern at this point, that's no bueno. You made, excellent point. You got to hammer, like we were talking about how hard sweeps are. Like you're playing Monroe or Arkansas State. There's no reason we should even consider it being a 2-1 series at this point.
Yeah, and that's one of those other guys,
if we're going to consider this a very top 3 conference, it should be.
Which it looks like at the moment, but, you always run the risk, and you're right. Like they've got to hammer everybody, right? But you could go to Monroe, and their Saturday guy could come out and throw a gem, and just has everyone off balance, and you lose one, and it's like,
and they've won 2 conference games all year.
Yeah, and it's like, what happened to Coastal? And it's just like the dude had a night. Like, what do you? That's kind of the baseball thing that we talked about, how it's got to be so consistent. But
that's what separates baseball from your football and your basketball rankings.
But then you also have the opportunity, like Coastal goes and beats Clemson this weekend, and everyone's forgot about Troy. Or on Tuesday, everyone's forgot about Troy, right? Like it's like, it's a delicate, finicky game that we play, man, and you gotta sneak up some of these midweek games, and you, like you said, you got to beat the crap out of the team you're supposed to beat.
TJ says, I believe Coastal, my bias aside, as a Coastal grad and a guy who covered Coastal, needs to be 19-25. However, 3 of their losses, while at the hands of good teams, have been bad. Wake Forest, Charleston, and Bama. I believe they make up for a 7-0 loss to ECU by winning the series. If they pull out the UNC game, this is a completely different convo. That's, again, when you say midweek games are not as important or whatever. I know that's not us. I'm just saying when people say that, that's why they are important, because TJ's point stands, right? You beat a ranked team like that, which would have handed UNC their very first loss of the year as well, right? You're going to get rewarded handsomely for that. Had they won that, they're still ranked right now. I truly believe that is a correct statement there. All right, go back to you here, Seth.
I was just hitting on when we had Coach Kermit Smith on the beginning of the year. You're talking about the ball bouncing this way or that way. That's separate, that's three wins right there. I think this is a great topic to debate. These guys commenting are making great points. This is
let's drive
baseball. Baseball's a long season, man. It's hard
but it sticks with you. So let's all remember this. And Seth, you said it earlier. You were surprised that JMU got in to a regional last year. Their RPI was high from the beginning because they took one game from Arkansas in like the second or third week of the season. And Arkansas was a phenomenal baseball team.
Opening weekend.
1 out of 4. And they played 4 games. They won 1. Their RPI was high, and they carried it. I wasn't, they played well in the regional, but could you have sit here and said like, oh, yeah, they deserve to be in? No, but you win a game like that against a ranked team, and it carried them. And not to mention that they were also aided by the fact that Sunbelt was really good last year, so they weren't getting dinged for playing inside of the conference.
Yeah, Ed makes a point. Southern Miss could easily have gone 1-2 against ULM this past weekend, which is true. I mean, we talked about how hard it was for them to get those victories on the road there. I saw Southern Miss fans sweating it out, like sweating bullets all weekend against ULM. Besides that last game on Sunday, they won 14-2.
Good teams find a way to win. That's the difference between a 2-1 or when a series 2-1 or 1-2. I'm thoroughly enjoying this podcast because we're finding out more and more that every game matters in the long run towards that record of your RPI, your strength schedule. I'm the first one to say midweeks don't matter, but you hit the nail on the head. Like these midweeks when you're playing Ole Miss or these Southern Miss, South Alabama, these teams have the luxury of playing some big time teams. Just like App, you got your Carolinas, your Wake Forest, Coast. It's fun. And
you want to hear the most disheartening thing you hear all day? There's these people called a selection committee, and they get paid really good money to do the same thing that we're doing right now.
maybe we should have a voice in this whole.
Well, if you like this segment, I would love to put it together every week. Now, I'm not sure it's going to be as great as it was this week, right? This was just a good find when it was like, hey, Coastal was right on the edge of the rankings. Okay, so I understand them falling out if all these other teams were superior, right? Like right behind them. They just won a 3-game set. Coastal didn't win. Okay, I can swallow that if that's what's going to be told to me. But when you started putting those facts and figures in my face and you say, compare these 3 teams right here, and that's just 3. We could probably have put another 1 or 2 teams in there. I mean, you can look at the at the RPI for Xavier, who is 11-13 overall, but has a number 5 RPI in the country. Yeah,
so they've played a really good baseball team so far.
Yeah, they've played a strength of schedule at number 1 in the country at this point. So yes, I mean they have played good teams, but they are 2-10 in Quad 1 and 3-1 in Quad 2. But anyway, again, there's other teams we could put in this and kind of take a look at this like this every week. So if this is something you liked, let us know because I had fun with that. I mean, I like to do a little of investigative stuff on our side, and just so we can. Shout it out. TJ is going to be our special guest, maybe moving forward here for some basketball and maybe throw him in the mix on some baseball stuff here in a little bit too. One other thing we can do if we don't have a resume comparison that makes a lot of sense or isn't as strong of an argument going forward is what you kind of said, Seth, is kind of looking outside of the sunbelt. Where do our teams need to be? Because this is kind of what we're seeing outside of here, where they're at, what they've been doing, how they've been getting to this part or this position, and kind of figuring out, working our way backwards a little bit of what these teams have to do. Obviously, that's a little bit more important towards the end of the season when we kind of know how it's played out a little bit more, and you may have 2 weekend series left and 1 or 2 big midweeks that could swing somebody's thought process or opinion of you. That could be vitally important moving into that regional conversation or before the conference tournament starts. TJ saying the national media doesn't recognize that baseball isn't dominated by the SEC because it's the SEC. It's regional. You can play baseball in the Southeast all year round. That's why on any given year, Coastal, Texas State, Georgia State, Louisiana can have a big year, and they can still pull out those big wins, which is why the anti-Sunbelt bias makes no sense to me.
I don't even know if it's anti-Sunbelt. I think it's just the money. Association of
money. It's who you're seeing on TV. It's these Sunbelt schools aren't. If you saw a Sunbelt school on TV every single week, you're like, wow, that conference must be good because they're on TV.
Yeah,
you're seeing a SEC team on TV, and you're like, wow, even with 2 wins on the year, they're still good because they're on TV. It's the money, the markets, the publicity. That's kind of what
it's the carryover from football too. I mean, let's be honest, that drives the ship. We all know that it's the carryover from football. It's the whole reason we do this, right? Like, hey, the schools that we all like are in a very damn competitive baseball conference. Put this year aside, we don't know what it's going to shake out. I think the Sunbelt is a little bit overall down, but this is a really good baseball conference, 3rd or 4th any given year, best conference. And they're always going to get – what's going to be fun is 6 weeks from now when you're talking about who's going to host a regional. And you're going to put blind resumes like that up, and you're going to look and see, holy crap, Georgia Tech gets to host a regional over Coastal because of why.
Right.
Here's the data. Why did that get chosen? Oh, because Atlanta's a bigger market and because the ACC's got more pull. Like, that's when it really gets
They were on TV 10 times this year.
Yep.
Which and that's the downside too, because like we know Coastal will pack the house for anybody who's coming to a regional, and Georgia Tech probably isn't doing that. I don't know. You guys know anything about Georgia Tech baseball as far as like the fan attendance? I did not look that part up, but that could strengthen the thought process, right? Like
the fact that we literally listed 90% of the ACC teams before we got to Georgia Tech tells you everything you need to know.
It's a very, very good point. We do have, the bonus ball off topic extra time here.
I think we just covered it.
I think we did, but just quickly, because it could play a role in baseball. I don't think it'll play as big of a role. But what we just saw in basketball in the tournament is terrible, if you ask me, right? Do you know how many mid-major teams we have in the Sweet 16 this year, fellas?
None.
Correct. 0. And guess what just happened across the sunbelt the past couple of days? Mass exodus into the portal from tons of sunbelt basketball players, including the Sunbelt Basketball Player of the Year. So that is a problem for everyone who says, well, Sunbelt doesn't focus enough on basketball and, they're not doing enough to – it's hard to do that when you have to consistently rebuild an entire conference. It's not just a team that needs to be rebuilt. You're literally rebuilding. Yeah.
The whole landscape. Look at McNeese State. I'm a huge Will Wade fan. Like, I think the guy's going to unfortunately do very, very good things at NC State. But they just straight up asked, in the past, these coaches have been, I've not talked to any other teams. Are you kidding me? Like, what? Like,
I love it here. I'm focused on this team.
He was very upfront, honest. He smiled and said, yes, I have. He's already talked to his players. Look, I'm sure there was a meeting before the season that he gathered his team and said, look, if we do good and we win, we can all move the heck away from McNeese, Louisiana, or wherever, McNeese State, and we can all have bigger and better things. And even in his press conference, he goes, we've talked about that. These guys are coming with me. Like, that's the way sports are now. Like, everybody has one goal in mid-major sports, and that's to get the heck out of here and go somewhere else. And unfortunately, that's everybody's chasing the almighty dollar anymore. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible for sports, in my opinion. As a sports fan, like, for reference, ASU's App State's basketball team last year, you win a conference championship and not a damn soul is on the team left anymore 1 year later.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
If not for Huntley's teammate from high school coming onto the team, maybe he would have been gone, right? I think that was a driving force of him coming back to the team. But again, that's what's just now happening at Troy. I think most of their starting 5 is now in the portal. It looks like
if you win, you lose your coach, you lose your players. I mean, it
used to only happen in football, right? But like we mentioned Campbell earlier, how Campbell's not as good as they used to be. What happened last year? Oh yeah, Campbell's baseball coach left, went to Ohio State, and took 9-10 players with them. It's tough in these smaller mid-major, which I freaking hate all that stuff, but let's face it, economically we can't compete with those schools. We can't. So when you finally do what a program's supposed to do, hire a good up-and-coming coach that can develop and recruit, you get good kids into your program and you succeed, it's all for nothing. It's just gone. And now you're just – it's rinse and repeat. It's like we talk about it during football, App State specific for a second. Would you rather be in a situation like we were in with Satterfield and Drinkwitz where you're getting poached because your team's really good? Or do you want to be in a situation where we were with Clark where you're getting rid of a coach because you haven't had the success? Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like if you're successful, it's gone. And unfortunately where we are, and this is baseball, basketball, football, if you're not successful, you're drowning. It just is what it is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. TJ's got another note. He said he looked it up. Funny enough, Georgia Tech's capacity, 3,718. Coastal can accommodate 5,000 to 6,000. So if you are looking there and there's a close thing, there's no reason why Coastal should not be hosting over Georgia Tech come end of the season. That's not the same argument we'll have, obviously. But if you just had an example to get that.
Talking about Marv's point for a minute, the only way to combat that maybe is to be good, because look at Coastal and look at Southern Miss. How often is your cream of the crop leaving to go?
You're not.
That's where everybody's wanting to come.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's a mid-major baseball team. So maybe the only way to combat that is, and maybe they have funds and all the whole 9 yards to keep players there, but you don't see players like that leaving to go to big schools because you're the 13th team in the nation. People are wanting to come to you. But
you got to keep in mind baseball changes next year too.
Yep.
Going to 34-man rosters, going from 40 to 34. So
that's going to be tough.
You got 6 less players per team. Like the ability to jump in the portal and go somewhere gets more difficult because there's less landing spots.
Yeah.
No other sport is saying, hey, we're going to put less people on a team except for baseball. And some of the coaches already talked about it. It's like, how do you combat that, right? You got to find two-way players.
Yes.
You got to find a guy that can play outfield and come in and throw 2 innings. Like where now they're going out and getting a guy. It's like, hey, if you only throw 1 inning every week, you're our guy. Now it's like, no, you got to be able to do something else.
Yeah. Ed's making a good point. USM can't keep a decent football coach, but we've been fortunate to keep, great baseball coaches for years and years. Lots of 4-year players at Southern Miss. And again, that is a testament to how much the Hattiesburg area and Southern Miss fans specifically pack out the house and they make it an event. It's not just a baseball game, right? It quite literally a party. And that's why App State's been successful for football. It's more than just an App State football game. It's all about the tailgate. It's about the day in Boone. Hattiesburg's got the same thing with baseball. Yeah.
It's the weekend. Oh, man, we could go on and on.
I think sports in general and football, let's be honest, football is where our heart's at. I think you enjoy each year for what it is.
Yeah.
You don't look forward to next year saying, we're going to be loaded. We got these guys coming back. No, that's not the case anymore. Like you specifically sit down at the beginning of the year. We all get together and we look at who our top guys are going to be, who we do have returning. And you look forward to that and you reevaluate at the end of the year because this absolutely sucks what we have going on.
You remember back in the day, once again, App football specific, we get a kid like Thomas Hennigan, and he comes in as a freshman, and you're like, we stole this kid 2 years from now. He could break every single record we have here. And none of us – we had that conversation, but none of us ever thought like, oh, we're going to lose him to somebody. Now you get a kid that comes in that you're like, oh, we stole this kid. You're like, well, enjoy him for this year. Someone's going to come throw $500,000 out of him next year, and he's gone.
I think the other thing – this is the fun part of it, right? But – when you have a good season, enjoy the hell out of it because it ain't going to happen again. Like when you've had these 2 and 3-year and 4-year runs as the best team in your conference and stuff, it's over. I mean, you got that year to do it and get it done. And then if you reload and get close, you should consider yourself lucky. App State did a really good job in basketball, honestly. Obviously, with where they had gotten to, you wanted more. But for a team that I thought would be like below middle of the pack in basketball because they decimated roster wise, showed pretty well. If you told me that they would finish with the record they had at the beginning of the season, I'd say, oh, okay, I'll take that. Obviously harder to swallow again once they had been successful that they couldn't follow through even more because again, those seasons are going to become sporadic. I guess is maybe the word I want to look at. But the good part, another good part is like you've got the example of like ULM in football last year, right? They've been nothing. They've been at the bottom of the conference. All of a sudden, they start the year out 4-0 with a brand new coach, and everyone's like, "Who the hell are these guys?" Right? But again, you got to enjoy that season a little bit because the best running back they had just got stolen by, I think, Mississippi State is where he ended up. So
don't win too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like hiding players.
Maybe we were better off with Sean Clark to begin with, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, there's all kinds of question marks there, so. It's going to be interesting to see. But any other news, notes, or topics before we get out of here, fellas?
No, been another good night, man.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it. And we will see you guys for the basketball wrap-up show on Wednesday with Zach and TJ. So be sure to tune into that one. And until next time, see you later.